She eventually gets phased out of wrestling the men and really just gets put with the ladies. She's in the women's division. Why do you think that is? Was there just pushback from the guys? Is that coming down from the office?
I don't know. That would be something, probably be like something for grilling JR or something to talk about with Bruce, because I did not know. But it was clear that if they felt like that was all she could do, then maybe the thing to do would have been to like send her on a goodwill tour, let her cash in on a lot of the opportunities were coming at a rapid pace, and bring her back when they did have something really good. I don't know. That's just Monday morning quarterbacking, but it was clear that was
it's a demotion.
It was a demotion because the women's division then
was not what it is now.
It's not what it is now.
And it was essentially in the death spot. It's the popcorn match. And it's not hanging out with The Undertaker or Stone Cold or The Rock or whatever she had been doing up to this point. After the Royal Rumble 2001, she does a handspring back elbow, and the story is she hurt her neck. Jerry Lawler rushes over from commentary like when Owen fell, and the whole thing was treated as a very serious injury, but of course, it's bought by no one. Eventually, she returns. She squashes Ivory at WrestleMania 17. She becomes the women's champion. But she's only with the company for 7 more weeks, even defeating Lita at Judgment Day. But then she never returns to WWF TV again. And I realize that by this point, you're starting to wind it down. We know you're never officially done with WWE.
This
allegedly.
is what month and year is this?
So 2001 is when WrestleMania 17 happens. And just 7 weeks later, she's gone. So we'll call it June of 2001. This is when the company is, up till WrestleMania 17, hotter than ever. Of course, that's famously where Stone Cold turns heel, and you start to see the business fall a little bit in April, falls a little bit more in May, falls a little bit more in June. Fans weren't ready, and they didn't want to see a heel Stone Cold. They wanted to cheer Stone Cold. But at the same time, she probably feels like, wait a minute, I was working with Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho, and now, no offense, but I'm working with Ivory. It's not quite the same.
And she had run into a brick wall contractually, right?
Yeah, she, according to JR, felt like she needed to be at that $1 million level. And JR would say, once upon a time, the biggest downside guarantee that you could get in WWE was $1 million. Whether you were Stone Cold or The Rock or The Undertaker or Triple H, that was the number. She saw herself in that light, and the WWE did not. So they got to an impasse based on that. You were friendly with Joni. Is that the version of the story you heard?
I don't know if I heard this story directly from her. I was going through my own issues at the time that we talked about during the Commissioner episode. Man, Joni would have made over $1 million. When I ended up signing, Steve and I signed at just about the same time in '97.
I don't mean to cut you off, but she would have made over $1 million had she continued to be programmed with Eddie and Jericho.
Yeah.
And no offense, but if she's working with Ivory and now just in the women's division, would she?
Well, the booking formula there's no textbook. A lot of it was a gut feeling.
Yes.
And I remember, I would call up Jim. Jim's still a dear friend. How he went through so many years as director of talent relations.
I'll never know.
Held everybody's respect. That's a real testament to Jim. But a lot of it it's what they felt was earned. And I remember, Jim, the payoff's a little light. He goes, oh, yeah, Mick, sorry, but you weren't in that main event. I said, Jim, these shows are selling out before we even put a card up. It's the company and the people that are seen as the major players who are selling those tickets.
Of which you are one.
And I am one of those guys. Yes. So whether you choose to put me lower on the card in front of a crowd that's been sold out for months, that's up to you. But I'm telling you, I think I deserve more. But I think that's a really valid point. I think Joni was worth the $1 million.
I do too.
I do too. And then here, like when I do my one-man shows, right? And we talked in private about how I'm not chasing the biggest guarantee I can get, because then you get 20 shows all around the globe and you're traveling 10 hours to each show. But I do need to get a decent guarantee, because a decent guarantee shows me that that venue has an interest in the show doing well. If you just say, I'll take whatever I bring in, that's nice and it's noble and there's part of me that likes that, but it puts zero pressure on that club to let people know you're coming in there, as they have nothing to lose. WWE, if they'd offered the $1 million contract, would have to put her in a good spot.
Yes.
Because that's how they would make their money back. But I have no doubt that if they had used her well, that she was worth that $1 million. And she was, to me, a gold mine for bringing the company into the mainstream, which was really important. And there really were not that many mainstream stars. Less than 10, I would say. Mm-hmm. And Joni was one of them.
Yes.
And I think, you know, bigger picture, if calmer heads could have prevailed, I don't know. It's tragic that they could not reach an agreement. And I think that the Cliff's Notes is that once Hunter and Stephanie were together, that Joni's career was over. But we've just gone through the months and years.
That was not the case.
That's not the case. And
but a lot of people would believe that she believed, and these are fans, so they don't really know Joni Lauer. You did. Do you think she believed that she didn't get that offer? Maybe not because Hunter didn't want her to have it or Stephanie didn't want her to have it, but maybe Vince was trying to protect his daughter? Because Vince is in a tough spot, and I don't think enough people really talk about that. And you've been very plain, even on this program in more recent weeks, saying, hey, Vince doesn't care if you disagree with him politically. Yeah. He may not like you. You guys might not be friends and want to go have a beer, but he's going to do what's best for business.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, it might feel like one of the first and only times that it's not just maybe his feelings that he has to consider, because lots of talent would leave and say, oh, Vince is this and Vince is that.
And then they come back.
But now he's got to think about his daughter. And as a father, man, that's a tough spot, because what I know about you more than anything else just from doing this show is you're going to do what you can to protect and take care of your kids. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that might not be popular for everybody else, but that's not as important as you taking care of your kids. Mm-hmm. And so I could totally buy into, even if we could push her and maybe get a return, at what cost personally for my family?
I think it was dollars and cents.
Okay.
And keep in mind, there's no more WCW.
Right. Or ECW.
Talk about that would have been a giant jump and a huge acquisition for WCW.
She had no leverage, is what
right.
You're getting to.
She had no leverage. She ended up going to Japan. I heard Jim on the. I mean, this is one of the shows that's out there. It's the DX. It's
the A&E show.
A&E show. He said $1 million. She wanted what Stone Cold was getting, and that's not going to happen. So as big as Joni was, there's only one Stone Cold.
Well, in fairness, that was his downside. Stone Cold made a whole hell of a lot more than $1 million.
And yes, it was. So I'm saying, I'm with you. I think she should have gotten it.
Yeah.
The company was public. They're making a lot of money, not as much as they would once they started attracting more sponsors with more family-friendly product. And expanding overseas and doing all the different things it took to stay alive, going head-to-head with the UFC and surviving through the pandemic and even flourishing. They've made a lot of right moves. But now we're talking about a company that's worth well over $1 billion. I think Joni would have been a good investment, but she did not really have a backup plan. And I think as much as leaving WWE hurt her financially, leaving that atmosphere
might not have been the worst thing.
with the support. I'm talking about the support system.
Oh yeah.
You know, that was probably long term even more devastating.